Ele é representante do transportador marítimo United Arab Shipping Company, a UASC. Mohammed Chamma, conhecido como Capitão Chamma, tem 52 anos, é casado, pai de 4 filhas. Chegou ao Brasil em abril de 2011, atuando como representante do transportador marítimo UASC na América do Sul. Nas palavras dele, considera sua história muito simples. Em 1982, concluiu o curso no Arab Maritime Transport Academy, primeiro certificado básico obtido para atuar como estagiário na área da navegação, integrando a frota de navios da UASC. Entre 82 e 92, trabalhou a bordo, conquistando todos os certificados necessários para alcançar o título de capitão. Em 92, atuou como planner e coordenador de operações na sede da UASC em Dubai, atendendo os navios do Oriente Médio. De abril de 2000 e junho de 2005, foi gerente de operações na região do Oriente Médio. Em 2009 até março de 2011, atuou como gerente sênior de operações de containers e em abril de 2011 mudou para o Brasil como representante do armador UASC na América do Sul. Aqui ao meu lado, Capitão Chamma, que recebe o programa Destaque Portuário. Capitão, conte-nos suas experiências desde que o senhor ingressou na área da navegação e até a sua chegada no Brasil.
Well, first of all, thanks for your coming here to our office in Santos, and I'm really glad to have some information shared with you. Could be of the benefit of the Brazilian as well as to all the outsiders who comes to Brazil to work. The work in Brazil, I could say something about it from my first time I came here in Brazil in 1983 in one of those German cargo ships, which we call it K-class ships. And we had very good, personally, I had very good feeling about the Brazil as a country, promising country, and as the Brazilian people. I could say, if you allow me to say this word, Brazil, I call it like a mother. She accepts everybody, and I hope she accepts only the good people who come talking about outsiders, because this country deserves to be one of the top countries in terms of economy as well as development. However, the work in Brazil is my small experience. It's very pleasant. People here very friendly. Although we have a lot of bureaucracy, we have a lot of difficulties, which is appearing everywhere you are working, but still it's manageable. You can go through. You have to keep the people, give the people trust. You have to keep yourself in good shape. Avoid corruption, avoid misshape, misbehave, and the country should be safe. The Brazil is it's a big country. It's a huge resources, and I would say that Brazil would remain for all the people I have met who came from different continents, from Far East, from Middle East, from Europe, from United States, from Africa. They have the same feeling. Brazil is a good country. Brazil is a nice country to live. I'm not saying that because I'm in Brazil. Actually, everybody loves the Brazilian people. And the nature here, it's very pleasant. And I could say that no matter what you do here, you could have a success. Provided you have to show your professionality, you have to show your achieving a good items to present that in front of the Brazilian to satisfy your stay in Brazil. Because if I came to Brazil here to do some job, I have to show a good job to the Brazilian that we need this kind of development and this. I have a mission here. As you have said here, I am here the owner representative of my company, United Arab Shipping Company, and I'm always here to serve the company to the best of my ability and experience. More or less, we should say Brazil, to work in Brazil, it's still pleasant, and we should always give it very good ambitious to have it to have your work done in decent manner. However, We are still at the beginning. We are we covered 1 year almost here. I have a lot to go, I believe. And we have a lot of challenges, I should say. But we are going through nicely with our team here, Brazilian people. And I'm sure we could reach our target in safe and sound manners. It's really something it's mixed between the feeling as well as the work style. Like to work in Brazil, it is a pleasure. I would repeat it, and we should have a lot of a new experience with the Brazilian people, with the Brazilian authorities, with the Brazilian nature. There's a lot of things to be done, but as I stated earlier, it is still valid and it's still achievable. We're not going to touch some obstacles at this stage, but we need to have a little of development and our style of work to get our work in a decent manner, and also we need to achieve the best for the company which I'm working with and to the Brazilian people in terms of good work and transparent and honesty.
Ok, nós vamos para um rápido intervalo e voltamos já com o Capitão Chamma no Destaque Portuário. Voltamos à nossa conversa com o Capitão Chamma, ele é representante da UASC aqui na América do Sul. Capitão, a sua experiência para nós ela é muito importante, sua visão como armador estrangeiro, como investidor no Brasil, para nós essa visão ela é muito importante. Conta pra gente um pouco as experiências que o senhor teve, essas experiências globais, né, e a avaliação da infraestrutura portuária nível Brasil. A gente sabe que a infraestrutura portuária ela é deficiente no Brasil, mas antes da gente entrar no Brasil, vamos falar um pouco do mundo. Como é que está na tua visão essa infraestrutura mundial?
Okay, it's a fact that the Brazilian port has been developed. We should not deny that because if I compare the port structures on the 80s when we used to come with the general cargo ships, and when I came in 2011 after almost 21 years, and I saw most of the east coast of Brazil, means the north and south, and I found there is a lot of development has been achieved by the foreign companies with the Brazilian shareholders and the private companies who did very nice job in terms of the port development and port infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Now, if I do compare with other countries, how the other countries had developed the ports, it's really a fact that the most of the countries which I have visited either by ships or by a normal visit, I could see there's a huge development in the port, and a huge infrastructure have been invested to develop the port to the best, because we should not deny any of our statement in this term. This ports has always been a good income resources for any government or private company, because the ports, it means a lot nowadays to everything moves by ships. Very seldom items now moved by other mode, but most of the items are moving through the ships. Now the ports has been developed, but still we need to work a lot with the ports. We need to do a lot of development. We need to do a lot of achievement in order to put the Brazilian ports in a good level of infrastructure as well as achievement. I understand there's a lot of difficulties, there's a lot of again I should say bureaucracy, but the things are going into right track. We need to have ports developed to the best in order to cope with the huge demand of the exports as well as the imports into the Brazil. Now we're talking about the container cargo, the containers coming with cargo, I mean with the ships, it's a huge, it's millions of TEUs coming into the Brazil and leaving Brazil. That's why we need to develop the ports. There's no two ways about it. Now, Brazilian compared to others, well, if you go to the Middle East has been a lot of development in the ports. And if you go to Europe, if you go to the United States, if you go to everywhere, there's a huge of development has been achieved in the ports infrastructure, which really helped the country to come up with a lot of additional resources. A part of that one, to maintain the economy scale of any country's imports, exports, to have a very nice balanced economy scale, the ports has to be developed. And apparently, without the port development, the country still need a lot of things to do. Now, I'm not putting at the moment or at this stage or saying, well, Brazil, it's still, no, Brazil had done a lot of job in this term, but still a long way to go. We need to do a lot of development. We need to do a lot of maybe foreign investment could be helping also to bring a new experience or to bring a new technology, which I do believe Brazilian resources have the tool to develop the ports, because they do have manpower, they do have the technology, they do have the more or less small experience in this, but we still need foreign companies who could invest and could share the ideas with the Brazilian to develop the port to the best. And I hope from my deep heart to get the port in Brazil developed to cope with the Brazilian needs. And also, don't forget, all the foreign companies who are sending the ships miles away from other countries to Brazil, they need to be received on time, they need to be discharged and loaded on time, avoid any kind of delays, which means money. So in order to achieve that, the Brazilian ports has to be developed. There's no two ways about it. And as you could see now, the ships are getting bigger and bigger, and in order to cope with this kind of development on the ship's size, the ports has to be developed. And I'm sure, without any doubt, that Brazilian could do a lot in this. And I'm sure with the help of the government or this local state government, they could help the expertise to do that one in safe and sound manner.
Nós vamos para um rápido intervalo e retornamos já. Voltamos ao nosso bate-papo com o capitão Mohammed Chamma. Capitão, obrigado mais uma vez aí, uma honra nós estarmos aqui. Vamos falar um pouco sobre os obstáculos que existem para o desenvolvimento dos portos brasileiros. A gente conhece tantos portos, a Ásia hoje tem batido os recordes de movimentação de cargas, as autoridades brasileiras estão super felizes com aqueles recordes que o Porto de Santos ou demais portos vêm batendo, porém, se a gente olha em comparação com o que está acontecendo no mundo, é muito pouco. A gente ainda precisa de muito mais para chegar. E a gente sabe que isso são obstáculos, são problemas que acontecem no nosso dia a dia. Conta um pouco na tua visão, né, vindo aí de fora, qual que é esse obstáculo que impede o desenvolvimento, o progresso do porto brasileiro?
It's very good and big questions. It's really the core of this business. This question is very important to understand, and I would like to have my word in a neutral and transparent answers to you, because we do believe we all love Brazil. We have to admit that one, and in order to do the development, we have to look into our problems. The problems, it's always there, but the answer for it, we have to solve it. Keep the problems pending, it put us nowhere. So that's why when we say, what's the problem? Why I'm not developing the ports? Why the infrastructure is not that fine for us to do? Well, as I stated on the previous question, ports inside the premises has developed a lot, but we need to do a lot of development outside the port, which is the big questions now. Santos is one of the largest South American ports in terms of the productivity, in terms of the number of containers, in terms of the number of ports inside the terminals, inside the port. However, but if I look from outside the port, we need to do a lot. To be honest, when I came here, I remember in 1983, in March, it was the first ship on, as I said, K-class ships, general cargo ships. We tied up in the berth that was, the number was 7, which is very close to the street. And after 21 years, to be honest, the same road has not been changed. Nothing has been changed outside the port. But if you go inside the port, there were a lot of changes. So here is my question. How we could develop the ports at the same time the infrastructure outside the port is not ready to accept or to cope, to be in line with the development of the port. Any investors, we look to his productivity. I need to develop, for example, 40 containers per hook per hour. I cannot do that unless I have a good infrastructure outside the port. Trucks could come and go without delays. Customs clearance, scanners, all this kind of stuff we need to invest and to make the life easy. Not for the foreign companies, also for the Brazilian. The truckers in some ports could stay a day waiting for their turn to go inside, especially with the peak season of sugar or soy sauce or the soya beans or any seasonal cargo here. So why we are really giving the Brazilian hard time, plus the foreign companies, again, we give them hard time in terms of developing the infrastructure to cope with the port development. If I am an investor, to be honest, I need to think twice before I put a couple of millions of dollars inside the port to develop or to share with the Brazilian company how we develop the port. Actually, the ports, it could be developed with no time. As I understand, there is a lot of Middle East companies, they are investing in Brazil. There is European companies, there is maybe Far Eastern companies, they are investing in Brazil, and they do have their own parts in the ports. But when I met them, all having the same idea. We do develop, but the development doesn't agree with the infrastructure, which we are not getting any response in terms of what we really need. So any investors need to do a good job in his investment. Beside that, he needs to have a good response from the country. Means I need to have a good picture of how I could maintain my commercial study to do a profit, which is a common sense for any investors. He needs to do money. He came with all the way down here to make money. So if he could not achieve what he is planned for, so which means the project is in loss. So in order to achieve that one, we have to keep everybody. And I would really, from your TV window, which we are on now, I would say I would vote for all the Brazilian people to do in one hand and try to say we need to develop our countries. We need to do our own infrastructure. We need to do our own work without corruption, without any chaos. We need to be really a good Brazilian to do that development. Believe me, without this ambitious, without this feeling, we're still lacking behind. I understand there's a lot of complexity and in terms of development. There's roads, infrastructure, there is historical buildings, whatever you call it. There's a lot of excuses, but also there are a lot of other things we could do. Beside that, we need to do something. Now, the Brazilian brain are there. I have met so many beautiful Brazilians here, so many nice people. They are really willing to develop. They are really willing to help. But to be honest, and with my transparency, they have a lot of obstacles. Well, they need help. They need really good help from high officials, from high decent people. They say, okay, we're gonna develop the country. Well, anybody, to be honest, you are a young man and they are with the cameraman, with those nice people behind, they are good people, they are doing work. But if I found my work, well, not achievable because of somebody else is still stopping me doing any development, we need to stop that guy. We say, sorry gentlemen, you are wrong. We need to develop the sport. We need to develop this country. We need to develop. We make our roads are clean. We make our road very nice, very well, marked, very nice, decorated, etc. So this kind of achievement, it can't be happen unless we have, in all the Brazilian mindset says, we want to develop Brazil. Sports is part of this lovely country. Could be airports, could be farms, could be parks, could be anything development related to that. So any kind of project you do, you need the same mindset that we, and as the Brazilian, we need to develop the country in good faith. We want to develop the country into transparency. We want to bring our children in a nice atmosphere, a nice environment. I need a good environment for my child to grow up and to tell me, oh dad, I should not be stealing because stealing is bad. And I should give this one as if it is running in his blood. Oh, corruption is bad word. We should watch and not to take any black money and to be away from drugs, to be away from any kind of things could spoil your brain. So all this kind of things is related. Development is corruption and development doesn't go parallel. Mm-hmm. Either you develop the country or you do corrupt. You cannot go both together. It is very important. We have to keep this one in our mind, all of us. Always we wish any countries, because God created us to build this country. Mm-hmm. And without our good faith to God, we will not go anywhere. But God doesn't like corruption. God doesn't like drugs. God doesn't like people to be on the street stealing or robbing or whatsoever. So all this it is our God wishing us to do is to build this earth, to build it a nice environment, a nice clean, a nice decent. So all these things, we cannot do it if we don't have the mindset to do it, if we are not prepared to do it. If we go anywhere in the earth, to be honest, Europe had developed a lot because of their transparency. And we should implement the transparency everywhere. Transparency means when I do a mistake, I admit it. There's no harm nobody is perfect, but we should admit, okay, I've done this mistake and I am rectifying the cause of it for not do it again. So if we build this one in our child and our children, believe me, this country needs, as sorry to say that, maybe we need in Brazil, well, not less than 30 years to have the Brazilian mindset in one direction. Without that one, believe me, the country will not develop. The country will not go further. We need to develop. You are very nice Brazilian, transparent, young, and I really wish you really good luck in your mission. This mission, what you are doing is really great. You're taking a foreigner who could, convey his message to you and to all Brazilian. We must say, we Brazilian, we love this country. We Brazilian, we like this country. We Brazilian must protect this country. And finally, I would say, God save Brazil and save the Brazilian and save the earth from any bad or any wrong actions.
Eu fiz questão de trazer o Capitão Chamma no Destaque Portuário porque ele é assim. Nós encontramos ele no dia a dia e o que ele está falando aqui é o que ele fala no dia a dia, em todos os nossos encontros, a visão que ele tem do Brasil. E o Capitão Chamma, nesse dia, representa a voz das pessoas que acreditam no Brasil, acreditam no sistema portuário brasileiro, mas que precisa realmente ter um interesse geral, um interesse de desenvolvimento da própria nação. Por isso que a gente tem que acabar com a corrupção, acabar com os interesses políticos. Eu acredito muito, quero parabenizar alguns projetos de governo, viu, capitão, que estão sendo realizados e que estão em busca do desenvolvimento portuário brasileiro. Mas a gente sabe que a gente precisa muito mais. Eu quero agradecer a presença do capitão aqui no programa Destaque Portuário, dizer que para nós é uma honra, né, ter recebido o senhor aqui na sua sala, aqui na sede em Santos, e dizer que o Capitão Chamma também é Destaque Portuário.